Hello and welcome to yet another spring day in Great Britain, and today I am about to explore the link between this place in the eastern part of England with Rajasthan in India and Sri Lanka. In the county of Suffolk near eastern coast of England is an estate called Sutton Hoo. In Old English, Sutton means a southern settlement and Hoo is an elevated area like a heel spur. This is home of the ghost ship from 7th century, but don't worry, this video is not on horror. Sutton Hoo is one of the greatest archaeological finds, and I hope you will enjoy this little walk down the path of history with me. In June 1939, archaeologists and history enthusiasts made an incredible discovery in a quiet corner of eastern England. Beneath an ordinary-looking mound, they found the shape of a ship. At its center was a burial chamber full of invaluable treasures. It turned out to be an Anglo-Saxon royal burial from the 7th century, and it contained, amongst many other things, garnets from Sri Lanka and India. Sutton Hoo was then owned by Edith Pretty, a wealthy woman who spent much of her youth traveling the world. She had witnessed several excavations in places like Egypt and developed a keen interest in archaeology. She moved to Sutton Hoo in 1926 with her husband. However, only 6 years later, she was widowed and continued living there with her young son. She was a curious person and often wondered if there was anything interesting underneath the mounds in her estate. In 1937, she enlisted the help of Ipswich Museum. In 1938, she commissioned self-taught archaeologist Basil Brown to excavate the mounds. Brown was born and brought up in Suffolk. He learned about the soils and geology of the region whilst working with his father, who was a farmer. In 1935, he joined Ipswich Museum to work as an archaeological contractor. The amateur archaeologists with a small team of locals began digging and were later joined by the professionals. In June 1939, they discovered the richest intact early medieval grave in Europe, with a huge impression of a ship 27 meters long and a burial chamber full of valuables, from feasting vessels to silverware from Byzantium, luxurious textiles, gold accessories set with Sri Lankan and Indian garnets, and the famous helmet with human mask. It was thought to be the royal burial of Riedwald, who ruled the kingdom of East Anglia in the early 7th century. Because of the acidic nature of local soil, the body was decomposed and only a human-shaped gap remained among the treasures. Following the discovery, Edith Pretty generously donated all the finds to the British Museum, which is now the current owner. As Second World War was declared on 3rd September 1939, excavations in Sutton Hoo could not continue. The treasures were stored in a disused London underground tunnel. They survived the war, but plans of the ship were burnt. Decades later, archaeologists returned to Sutton Hoo to find answers. Recent research has detected phosphate in the soil, which confirms that a human body indeed was once present. The excavation started by amateur Basil Brown and his assistants William Spooner and John Jacobs, and the professional team led by Charles Phillips of Selwyn College, Cambridge, and a group of young archaeologists was soon to turn interesting. Among the heaps, Peggy Pickett found a pair of tiny pyramid-shaped mounds that the team later confirmed to be made of gold and garnet. In total, they discovered more than 4,000 pieces of garnets, mostly adorning gold objects. But where did they come from? Several scientific analyses were carried out over time, but no conclusive answer was obtained. Then in 2023, while researching for the Silk Roads exhibition of British Museum, historians had the opportunity to use the most sophisticated technique available so far. A specialized test called particle-induced X-ray emission could tell them the answers they were looking for, but there is no such machine in the United Kingdom. So they traveled to Paris to the National Center for Research and Restoration in French museums. It has a particle accelerator capable of performing Pixie analysis, with experts specializing in investigating early medieval garnets. They had carried 5 objects from the Sutton Hoo hoard for the analysis and discovered that all of them had gems from India, Sri Lanka, and Czechia. Imagine trade happening between India and England in the 7th century. In fact, the stones on the imitation buckle seem to have come exclusively from India, Rajasthan to be precise, as was mentioned in the label in Silk Road's exhibition. If, like me, you were confused about who the Anglo-Saxons were, I have the answer in brief. Once upon a time, Britain was ruled by the Romans. They left in the year 410. And after that, different Germanic people from places which are now in Germany, Scandinavia, and the Netherlands, they migrated and they settled here and they formed their own kingdoms. There used to be a lot of infighting. And remember, that was a time when this was not yet England. That's River Deben, which is how they probably migrated here, and it also helped to transport the huge ship. Sutton Hoo is now under the National Trust. It has exhibitions, cafe, shops, a sprawling estate where you can walk with your dog, a watchtower too. I'm going to leave all the details in the caption of this video. It's only about a couple of hours drive from London. You might also be interested in the Netflix film Sutton Hoo, the true story behind the dig. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.